Handel und Austausch zwischen deutschen und schwedischen Unternehmen haben eine lange Geschichte. Unsere Volkswirtschaften sind eng miteinander verbunden, ähneln und ergänzen sich in vielen Bereichen. Für Deutschland ist Schweden heute einer der wichtigsten europäischen Handelspartner. Die Innovationskraft der deutsch-schwedischen Wirtschaft ist es, was unsere Länder voranbringt. Schweden ist die innovativste Volkswirtschaft der EU und Deutschland gehört ebenfalls zur Spitzengruppe. In beiden Ländern arbeiten junge und traditionsreiche Unternehmen gemeinsam an den Lösungen für mehr Nachhaltigkeit und Digitalisierung. Dank eines intensiven Austauschs und guter Zusammenarbeit entstehen neue Ideen, die unser aller Leben bereichern.
Schweden und Deutschland sind treibende Kräfte bei dem European Green Deal, die Erreichung der CO2-Neutralität. Deswegen investiert der Volvo-Konzern große Summen in die Elektromobilität, entweder getrieben mit Batterien oder Brennstoffzellen. Und deswegen haben wir das Joint Venture mit Daimler Truck gegründet, Cellcentric, ein Unternehmen, das die Brennstoffzellen herstellen wird.
Sverige är viktigt för Siemens därför att det är ett föregångsland. Ett föregångsland vad det gäller innovation och att ta till sig ny teknik. Inte minst då inom områden som hållbarhet, där elektrifiering och digitalisering är viktiga ledord. Och det är ju verkligen också Siemens essens.
Die deutsch-schwedische Wirtschaft ist stark aufgestellt. Wir sind der Motor für Wachstum und Innovation auf beiden Seiten der Ostsee. Ist Ihr Unternehmen bereit für Schweden, den größten Markt Nordeuropas? Dann werden Sie Teil unseres umfassenden Netzwerks. Deutsch-Schwedische Handelskammer. Die Kammer.
Drop.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. We do this. We bridge this a little bit. While how much more do we have?
I'm not sure if they.
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, you're waiting
Okay.
for some of the guests digitally, I
Yes.
guess.
So thanks for coming, everybody. I'll repeat that in a minute. In a minute. But isn't it good to see everybody in life, isn't it? Rather than sitting in front of a screen. I personally think so.
Oh, nu börjar vi. Okay then, welcome everyone to this seminar that's within the German-Swedish Tech Forum and arranged by the German-Swedish Chambers of Commerce and BASF. My name is Sanna Balsvik and I will be your moderator for this hour or so. Welcome everyone here in the room, all of you, and all of you watching us digitally. You are all welcome to this seminar. And the question that we will ask today is, how can we increase the share of bio-based raw materials in the ambition to accelerate the transition towards net zero emissions? And what's holding us back? And what is, or maybe should be, the next step forward? We will get perspectives here from the industry, from the political side of things, and from research and analysts. And if you have questions, you watching us digitally, you can send us an email, and I think that you will see an email address on your screen at the moment. And all of you here in the room, just raise your hand and we'll try to answer at least some of your questions. We have speakers and we have a panel in the end, so you can ask questions to all of these people joining us. Now, BASF is working all over the world, and the demand for raw material is vast. And their ambition towards net zero to 2050 is ambitious. And here to greet us and to give a short opening remark is Mark Meyer. Welcome, Mark. You're the Vice President at BASF for the Nordic and Baltics.
Correct.
And also Valle Vigers from the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. And I think, Valle, that you will start.
Yes, of course, also a very warm welcome from our side. So why is it important for us at the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce to address this topic? Circular bio-based industries are considered a key enabler of the green transition, and the chemical sector is one of the largest trade areas between German and Swedish companies. Germany is by far Europe's largest exporter of chemical products, with the exports amounting to roughly 127.5 billion euros in 2021. Sweden's share is about 10 billion euros. We want to support the German-Swedish industry to ensure the access to bio-based raw materials. There are already a lot of good initiatives from the government, but we would like to discuss how politics and industry, through strategic cooperations, can join forces and do even more together. With this said, we look forward to a fruitful discussion, and now I hand over to you, Mark, BASF, one of the largest chemical companies in the world. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody. May I even correct, we are actually the largest chemical company in the world. I had to do that one. It wasn't in my script, I promise.
Perfect.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. This is already the 6th time that we are doing an event like this, where we would like to engage academia, business, and political stakeholders on topics of relevant debate for us as an industry. In the past, we talked about bioeconomy already. We talked about circularity, concepts of sustainability in general for our industry. And we've always done this in great support with the German Chamber. So thank you again for the whole team of the German-Swedish Chamber to make this work as professional as you always do. So thank you so much for that. As mentioned before, my name is Mark Meyer. I have the pleasure of looking after BASF across the Nordics and the Baltics. Just to give you a little bit of a perspective, we are a German headquartered, scientifically based with very rich scientific heritage company. Across the Nordics, we have about 800 people across 20 locations for production sites. We service and support customers, work with customers, around about 2,500 customers, ranging from basically all industries, forest-based companies. We work with packaging customers, automotive, nutrition, care, consumer customers, and construction, of course. Now, as I mentioned, during the past 6 years, we've addressed different parts of topics of relevance for us. So today we will actually zoom again into the topic of bioeconomy. on the topic of raw materials and how that how we can increase this share. Background of this is, of course, that previous government has issued work into this specific sector as a question, and we are now in an interesting situation where the new government needs to draw the right conclusions and also pull through with the right activities going forward. So we have a great set of speakers, participants, and a panel debate afterwards. I'm really looking forward for the next 60 to 90 minutes. I think this is sort of the ballpark, and I'm really happy that we have this again, also partly in live, looking at you all in the room, not to dampen anybody who's online. So, with that, I pass back to you.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Valle. And Mark, you will be joining me later on to close the session. Yes, thanks so much. And well, now we're ready for our first speaker. And it's Daniel Roser, Director Renewable Raw Materials at BASF and part of the Net Zero Accelerator program. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Paulette. Welcome.
Now you're here to represent the industry and to tell us about your roadmap towards Net Zero 20. And I know that you will be focusing today on the bio-based raw material side of that.
Exactly.
So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So really excited to be here and talk about such an interesting and exciting topic. And it's only a few minutes, so let's dive right into it. But yeah, it's here. And what I want to do in these few minutes, I want to give more an impulse now to then later also in the discussion talk about how this is positioned, this whole topic in this whole net zero transformation that BASF is also currently going through, how renewable raw materials are situated there. Then also provide you an overview on the key drivers behind that, from market, from regulation and so on, talk about the framework and boundary conditions to it. Yeah, and then have a discussion and also opened on how we can collaborate to further push it and scale this topic. But to enter into this is really the major target we set out there, the net zero target 2050. We actually have that target to be achieved. We have quite some growth to come now over the next years to come, and we still want to go down compared to 2018 by 25% already in 2030, and then moving forward to net zero in 2050. We have a whole set of tools we are using for that, and currently, and probably you've heard about it also in the news and press releases we've done in recent time, power supply, grey to green, is probably one of the big levers. We are now quite progressed, and we're going to further push. We have a make and a buy strategy. We are with Vattenfall, for example, now collaborating there and are engaged in a huge wind park. And we are also going for long-term purchase agreements right now to really turn this around and have green electricity almost 100% then in 2030. So we are doing this not just in Europe, same thing in the US and in Asia. Steam supply. Steam is the essence also in our processes. Steam supply, very important. Bring heat pumps in, for example. We have e-furnace, so our crackers, to change them from using to heat them up by gas, then to electrify them then in the same way to reduce significantly our emissions. And then we have whole site roadmaps like Antwerp. We try to have Antwerp, for example, the huge complex Verbund site there, to have that on net zero already in 2030. So we are combining a lot of technologies and a lot of measures, bringing a lot of capex in to achieve those targets. So in that sense, though, you read also Scope 1 and 2 target up there. Bio feedstocks, what we are talking today about, is a little bit a different thing, because you always talk about decarbonization all the time. Chemical industry cannot be decarbonized. Yeah, carbon is our raw material. This is the one we transfer. This is the thing we work with. So we are here talking about a kind of recarbonization using renewable raw materials. And then you have to actually for sure go, and this is very high level, easy to understand, but to position it overview, we have to go in the circles. And to first say recycling, you have to go all the way for recycling, be it mechanical one or what we also do in chem cycling. we have to go all the recycling loops for sure and push them as much as we can. And the complement to that is then the biomass as an important circular feedstock. Yeah, CCU, for example, is not mentioned. You can really broaden this up, these things, but these are the major routes we are currently following. And now talking about renewable raw materials, and I mean it's pretty obvious, but basically you are going the biggest circle of all. Yeah, because you are using this great capability of plants to absorb CO2 then and provide biogenic carbon to the industry. And what is somehow here shown is we can, as BASF and with all the different value chains we are playing and so on, we can bring this into our value chains in very, very different ways, be it biomethane into our C1 chains, be it a naphtha, a renewable cracker feedstock into our crackers, be it with additional ways through ethanol and so on, or through gasification. There are very numerous ways. There are some things that are already available in the market, quite a lot of technologies coming up, also specifically around waste, for example, in the area of gasification and so on, to move that in. So be it a direct feed, be it an indirect feed, we are looking into everything. And specifically my team is also very much looking into the base chemicals, so serious scale up. Well, how can we do that? How can we make a case? How can we actually bring that into our Verbund systems? And then it is delivered via, be it bio-based or the biomass balanced products. Biomass balance is really, we take the green attribute, we have a promise to the customer to actually sell a bio-based product. We take the green attribute, we channel that with a certified process through our entire system, and then provide a biomass balanced product to the customer. So these are the ways we are using, and the customer is actually currently the center of all that, of these drivers right now, to push that scale up, to enforce that transition, because regulation currently for that sector, it's not like in fuels and energy. Regulation is, let's say, in an orientation phase. We come later to that. So the customer, and what is here a main driver, and you see that when you look throughout the entire actually industry landscape we are serving into. It's not just that the main top companies like mentioned here are setting themselves really strong targets driven by the consumer base, driven by the shareholders, driven by so many topics, and the ambition to bring down GHG. And you see that they are driving this, and they are also now explicitly defining their Scope 3 targets, which is then our PCF, our product carbon footprint. This is the key KPI I want to mention here. The product carbon footprint of our products is a major lever then to the customer base to bring down the emissions, and to actually achieve their targets, and to also then fulfill, when you have biomass-based products, to fulfill these strong targets. More and more we see also fossil-free targets for the years to come and so on. And we can here actually feed into this strong need and into these strong targets, which are not far out in the next years to come. And to go a little bit, that's a little bit messed up, but still working on that chart. This PCF, just to go one step a little deeper into this product carbon footprint, why this is such an important thing, and why biomass can play here a massive role with biomass and the biogenic uptake in the beginning, and the feed in via renewable cracker feedstock, methane, naphtha, and so on. Basically, the product arrives at our gates already with a negative product carbon footprint, and we can actually use and transform that to tremendously bring that down. And when you look into such a typical average PCF of a product of a chemical company, or now specifically in our case, roughly, and we transparently communicate that roughly 2/3 of our share is coming from Scope 3. And here biomass and this reduction potential can tremendously bring it down. And that makes it very interesting now to tackle here with biomass and bring an option in. Next to all the energy we currently put on Scope 1 and 2, and by combining these things, we can actually even now go out and have net zero products offered. And that is now the basis we tackle, and that is one of the key drivers from the market side. transparency in this is extremely relevant. Yeah, so to push that, to have a very clear also communication and discussion basis with our customer base. We have installed here a new software solution, but behind that software solution is a methodology we're pushing through with all our suppliers right now to not just use some average industry data, but really to bring our database clear down. What is the true carbon footprint you have in your products, and then to channel this through the supplies, through all our individual plants, and we actually can define now and communicate and exchange on the product carbon footprint of 45,000 products we are bringing out. And basically, and this is then also the basis and the important part where we collaborate and need to collaborate further then with our customer base and say, where are your targets? Where are your needs? Where is your abatement cost curve? How can we make that case? What do you need? Because we can now go via, is it on the waste side? Is it on the product carbon footprint? And this delivers us the proper foundation on that to really have that kind of discussion, to make a business case, because and have a joint understanding, because we are talking here about raw materials which are typically more significantly, sometimes more expensive than the fossil bases, and somehow you bring them in. You have a way to transport it through mass balance, and you have a way to transparently discuss the effects of doing so. This is very important, transparency in this thing, and to further push this. This is, by the way, an open software solution. We are also bringing that into the market, trying to further roll that out. And now coming to the regulatory side of it, I've mentioned before, it's here we are, just like the industry, also in a more orientation phase, I would say. Yeah? It's both challenges and chances we all see in this area. And for example, the mass balance approach is such an important topic, yeah, to flexibly through a complex Verbund systems, but also through different value chains and interconnected plants to transport the value of what we have bought and brought into our grids in the beginning, to actually bring that to the end product and to the customer and consumer. So flexible mass balance approach is something really important. We need to push forward biogenic carbon contribution in this whole product environmental footprint discussion right now, to have that acknowledged and further in. That gives us a great way to really bring that value through to the market and have that also visible there. Then the other part on where I want to a little bit what I mentioned is knowing that we have no quota in here, but the quota sits on energy and on fuels. So this is for sure currently not a level playing field we are seeing there, right? So quota-driven prices on raw materials is quite an issue right now, yeah. So this is something where we need to have a certain cascading view more and more on the biomass, on the use of it, and seeing that we basically are not bringing it through an engine and converting it into energy, kinetic energy or heat. Yeah, we are actually pushing it. We have no alternative to put it into the material use. We use it for material use, and we partially can also bind it. Yeah, so this carbon we use, we also partially then bring into long-term as a carbon sink almost into our product. So basically here to take the material use into the focus, and we see that currently also, for example, the biomass strategy, which will come up in Germany, or the sustainable carbon cycles topic brought by DG Climate right now, are addressing these ways on how to work with carbon, and this is moving right now. So it is a collaboration, it's a joint approach also on the regulatory side here, that we actually find ways to have a constant environment, a clear view, now moving into investments, moving into this topic, growing it seriously, that we have their joint understanding on the norms, on the ways, on the certification views, but also on the legal framework. This is an essential topic to come up. And collaboration, and this is already where I end the presentation, collaboration is anyhow the big topic, and we couldn't dive now into all these various topics you could raise, but technology is also, we will later on have more technology focus in the presentation for sure. But technologies, there are exciting technologies coming up sometimes. So here there are the partnership is essential, yeah, a joint partnership. And we see that partnership right now also on the energy side with our wind park project, with the e-furnace. We are doing this with Sabic and Linde and so on. So collaboration, it's a whole new game. You need to open up and you need to work very closely together with technology providers, with the suppliers of the raw materials. You need to work very closely on the customer side and define how can we transport that in a really clear way to the market that attribute this biogenic claim. And then building robust supply chains. Yeah, we are going away from a known fossil supply chains into the agro space, forestry space, and so on. So building these in a robust way requires quite a lot of collaboration and an open and sometimes 2-3 partners in the game. And this will be crucial to have there an open-minded, very collaborative style moving forward in this way. And that's what we are doing almost in each project we are running in different regions right now, and moving this forward. We have really strong collaborations focused to move this into scale, and BASF wants to really push that now in the years to come further out and grow that biomass balanced business, which is currently already dynamically growing and really exciting also more and more brands to further really push that out and have there a significant growth further on, because the challenge is up and the transformation of such a huge mostly fossil-based raw material base is really essential, that we bring the bio piece in next to recycling, next to all the alternatives we can also bring in to make that transformation happen. That is already my short speech. I understand.
Thank you.
Can hand over.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Daniel. We'll see if we have any questions in the room or on the emails. But first, you started off by talking a lot about your customers. What would you say are their benefits from your work that you're doing now?
Yeah, basically, the essence is that we bring the carbon footprint extremely down, and with this biomass balance approach we are offering, we have right now, Henkel was communicated just recently, they are really big time moving into this topic right now, and basically you have then a certified, a proven and very clear approach on how we are replacing the fossil resources. So basically we can help our customers to bring that huge demand coming from the consumer base in now with a solution right now. And this is basically what we are shooting for.
Excellent. Any questions in the room? Let me see. Do you have any? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Göran Nyström from Ovako. We're a steel producer, and what you say is very much our own opinions. We have worked in the same way with the carbon calculators, with collaboration and so on. And I'm also encouraged by you stressing the scope 3 contributions. We see very typically for our customers that a very large amount of the footprint, it could be up to 80 or 90%, is indeed in scope 3, same as you showed. How well do you see that your customer base in turn are also considering the scope 3 contributions?
Internally, the scope 3, or our customers.
Your customers, yes.
Our customers, and that's basically what I showed before. They have specified mostly the specific scope 3 targets across the industry. So basically this is our basis then to deliver the products on them.
Yeah, okay, you showed that around 50% of the top companies had specified scope 3 targets.
Yes.
Okay, and it's a growing share. I think we are also encouraged
Massively
by
growing.
seeing it.
More than 30% per annum, if you just roughly, there are several studies on that, and we also, you actually get that every day in the customer interactions. You feel that very much, that there is a serious push towards this. This is really a need coming up, and more strongly than ever.
And I think that's so critical for the planet. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's why we think also this product carbon footprint is a key and essential KPI also in the future to sell chemicals.
Excellent, thank you. And Daniel, you will join us later on for the panel. So if you have questions for Daniel, we can take them then. So save them for later. Thank you so much. Well, now the Swedish government has put together an inquiry for a national bioeconomic strategy. And here to tell us more about this is the main secretary for this inquiry, Karin Thormalm. Välkommen. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you very much.
Now we know that it's early days for your work still, but we asked you here anyway to tell us about your work and what kind of directives that you got and how you will work with this inquiry. And I know that some part of your work will be presented in February, and then you will take on the big scope, so to say. But tell us about how you will do this.
I'll try to give you a picture. Thank you very much, and thanks for letting me be here. So, okay. This is an inquiry that is called a national strategy for a growing bioeconomy. And it was, well, as Susanna said, I will not be able to present any of our result yet, but I'll give you a small picture about the background and purpose and a little bit of this assignment and a few words about how we work. And such an inquiry in Sweden is, they are independent authorities. Our email address is regeringskansliet, but we're not a part of regeringskansliet anyway. So that could be important. And I will actually start in the current situation. What's on the top of mind in our both individuals and politicals and in society. We have crisis. We have climate crisis. We have energy crisis with extremely high prices of fuel and electricity. There's a war going on in our nearby area. And this affects people, individuals, companies, societies in a profound way, I would say. And I will not say that our inquiry will have answers on all those questions, of course, but it's important to understand that our terms of reference were written in this context. So the purpose is three main purposes, I would say. First, we should promote sustainable growth, innovation and employment throughout the whole country. We should contribute, what we present will, they will want them to contribute to environmental and climate benefit as well. And we should also create enhanced national security of supply and reduce vulnerability. Oh, I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry. In society. And this is very interesting because normally when you talk about especially the biofuels part, but in bioeconomy in general, the climate part of that has been very, very strong. But it's very clear in our terms of reference that we should look at all those three parts and try to find ways to meet this purpose. And it should be based on biomass from forest, from agriculture, fishery, and residues from food production. This is the base for the bioeconomy, so to say. And we can say that our assignment is twofold. We should develop a proposal for a national strategy and measures for how for a sustainable, competitive, and growing bioeconomy. And that is the big part, so to say, that should be presented in October 23, so in a year more or less. And then we have a smaller part, wouldn't say more easy, absolutely not, but that's to propose measures to promote efficient production of liquid biofuels based on domestic raw materials in Sweden. And that should be presented already in February, in middle of February. And we have there are many challenges, of course, and we can say that one of those challenges for us in the moment is it is high ambitions and detailed requirements regarding how biomass could be used. It's, for example, for the Fit for 55 package from the EU Commission, putting restrictions. It's it's not ready yet, but we have seen a lot of different parts of that. What can be called for as sustainable raw materials, so to say. And we also have, regarding the biofuels part, there are quite many immature techniques for biofuels from lignocellulose, which, when you talk about the big portion of raw material or possibilities to make this from Swedish raw materials, is the lignocellulose, we would say. And the technology is not there yet, you can say. And there is also limited volumes of both biofuels as such and the raw materials for biofuels to substitute fossil energy in industry and transport. And usually you can say that anything you can do from fossil-based fossil raw materials, you can make that from bio-based as well. I mean, for each and every product, but not in the total volumes. And it's very interesting to hear the BASF presentation here about your plans for the future. I mean, it's huge amounts that is asked for, so to say, from the market. And you have to use this limited bio-based material in a wise way. And there are, of course, political, financial, and technological risks as well that challenge the steps forward. But there are, of course, possibilities and opportunities as well. We can see huge climate and environmental benefits for using the biomass material instead of fossil ones. That's the outphasing of the fossil economy it's important. And it's also a way to put a higher value from residuals from industry, both for the forest industry and fishery and agriculture. I mean, if you use it for anything, but you can use it for other things and other products, making a higher value. And you could have an increased supply capacity and security supply, and the reduced vulnerability in society as such. And that is, of course, a very national way to see it, because we feel that we have big shares of we are importing big shares of especially the fuels, of course. And we have always been doing that. We have never been we have always been dependent on import of fuels and energy, but now we have a possibility to use our own raw material. And of course, strengthen competitiveness, growth and employment. Swedish companies and could grow. So this is some challenges and some opportunities that we see. And how we work on this, though. So I would say that we listen, we ask, we are thinking, we are discussing and reading, talking and analyzing. And we have so many meetings with all different actors and interests and stakeholders to find out what a little bit about the question, the head question for this seminar. What prevent and what promotes an increased production of liquid biofuels or bioeconomy in such. And you should not forget that what we see is that the promoting production of biofuels does also promote the production of intermediates. I mean, you don't take a tree and put it in the fuel tank because you have to do different steps, and that you can have products that may be used in chemical industry, for example, and that is also a way to strengthen the idea, so to say. What kind of measures and policies is needed to have this to make it happen? And I will not give you any answer of that for the moment, but we of course are discussing a huge amount of different ideas. You can have policy and support on the market side. You can have policy and support for production side, and probably we need a little bit of both to have this. And another important thing that we see is that to have this transition, there might be a need for new business corporations that different sectors and different business areas that usually don't work together needs to come together and find out, we have a raw material that you might need and use in your process, which is normally not our customer, but so to find meeting places will be quite important part as well. So I'll give you my email address and all your ideas about how to make this happen. I would be happy to find out. So
thank you. Karin. Excellent. Thank you so much, and good luck with all your work. Let me just ask you, before we see if we have any questions in the room, what would you need from BASF or the market as input? You welcome every...
Yes, I do. And what we would like to know, what's hindering or what's stopping the production? What's your main issue? Is it political? Is it financial? Or is it technical? I mean, is it more support for research that is needed, or is it a very clear market-driven something? Or and what's preventing, or what is the stopping us? Because then you have to know what is the problem to find a good policy measurements to meet them. You need to know where is the obstacles.
Okay, but we will change email addresses later on.
Absolutely.
And let's see if we have any questions. Yes. Sorry, you got a microphone.
Sorry. My name is Malte Lillesåre, Biocol, Sweden. I have a question. What do you see the market perspective of biofuels in perspective of the very quick electrification?
I think that it's a very good question, and it's a very positive developing this electrification of the especially the road transport. But what we see is that both for air flights and for boats for shipping will still be a large amount of biofuels that could be used there, and also there will be a ban on cars with a combustion engine, but there are still many cars that will live for quite a long time after that. So the overall view is that there will still be a need for biofuels, even if it's this development that you talk about. It's making it smaller, of course.
Excellent, thank you. And you will also join us in the panel later on, so you can have questions for Karin later on as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know when we spoke earlier, Karin, you told me that you will have a group of experts working with you. And one of those experts is Johanna Mossberg that we will now meet. And she's Vice President for Biorefinery and Energy at the Research Institute of Sweden, RISE. And I hope, yes, I now can see you, Johanna. Hey, hi. You're with us from Gothenburg, I think.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you, but I was coming from Piteå down to Gothenburg. So I'm now with you from Gothenburg. Sorry, I'm not in Stockholm.
Oh, but we're glad that you can join us in this way. Please give us your view on where we stand today and what we have in front of us to be able to accelerate the production and use of bio-based raw materials. And Johanna, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. And I hope that you will be able to follow, although I'm not in person. I just had this first slide. I will show you a couple of slides. This first one is made by our communication department, and Karin just said part of this. I actually, since I am a researcher, I put in the word potentially because the communications department said that everything we can do. we can make bio-based. And I think that many of you know that it's a little bit of time, technology, and investments that are needed in order for that to be, what to say, more of a total truth. But in fact, a lot of what we do, we can, if we put in time, money, and investments and technology development, do bio-based with a bio-based carbon. Because as Daniel said earlier on, carbon is an essential source in many industries. And to make it long-term sustainable, it needs to be renewable carbon, circular or bio-based. At RISE, we are state-owned research institute, and our main aim is to support industry and society in sustainable transition. And at my department, we do that mainly by working with different waste and side streams and looking into technologies of how these can be upgraded into utilities and products, and support industry with having the opportunities of scaling up and having pilot and research infrastructure for that.
Oops, the sound. Sorry, Johanna, can she hear me? Johanna, yeah, you muted. You're on mute.
So
yeah.
now I'm unmuted. Sorry. I will show you some slides. Some of the examples are Swedish, since I'm from Sweden, but it's in general. Just to give an example, saying that we are saying in the investigation, as Karin said, that we're aiming for a growing bioeconomy. We have already in Sweden, but also in other countries, quite a significant bioeconomy. In Sweden, it is largely forest-based, but also the agriculture stands for a quite big chunk of the existing bioeconomy, so to say. And this is probably also just stupid to say, but just to press the emphasis of this, the importance of the bioeconomy, it is what was said earlier, to go from the independence of fossil materials. We need to be independent of that if we're going to have the long-term sustainable transition. And the bioeconomy provides actually solutions for everything from both materials to fuels, and for both short-term and long-term perspective. And one thing that is quite different from the present, more fossil-dominated economy is that the challenges that we're going to solve are global, but the bio-based solutions can many times be local. And that's also why I have some Swedish examples, because in Sweden we have certain preconditions, and those can be even different if you go down to the local or regional level. And different European countries and other global countries, they have different preconditions. And biomass is really interesting, but it's also more diverse than the fossil feedstocks. And this means that as a researcher, it's great because you need different solutions. For the market, it's a bit more challenging because you cannot process it. The fossil resources are more similar, so to say. So you can use the same process for a large chunk of feedstock. Biomass is more diverse and you need more differences in technologies, but that's also a really nice research challenge, and it also provides opportunities for, as Karin said, if we want more, like a larger part of Sweden or many more regions to have possibilities for increased bioeconomy, the biomass provides that, whereas the fossil resources are distributed in a dissimilar way globally, so to say. And as also said by Daniel, we will still need carbon-containing products. We can't take away all the carbon in the world. We need the carbon, but it needs to be renewable instead of fossil-based. And the prerequisites then for the bioeconomy is that we need new products, but we also need new markets and new business models. It will not be enough just to have the products. And as also said, the biomass is a limited resource. To be true, also the fossil is actually limited. The biomass is just a little bit more limited, and it takes a while to generate more, but at least it generates more fast than the fossil ones. So, but given that it is a limited resource, we need to have resource efficient solutions and also look into the circular aspects and make sure that also the new systems that we design are adapted to be circular. And in order to create bioeconomy products in the most efficient way, we talk about biorefineries. And more or less, you can say that biorefineries, that's the industrial response to a bioeconomy. And in Sweden, because we are now in Sweden, forest and forest industry will play a key role. You cannot deny that because we have a lot of forest and we have a lot of forest industry. And this is different for other countries. Depending on who you are and what your characteristic is, your bioeconomy will probably look a bit different. But in Sweden, forest industry and lignocellulosic feedstock will play a significant role. And in the forest bioeconomy, this has been a historical development of gradually improving and increasing the value added from the biomass feedstock. So this is nothing new. At first, long time ago, we just burnt it for heat and light. Then we started building with biomass. Now we have a really skilled pulp and paper industry, for example, and we're taking it even further, doing bio-based materials, bio-based chemicals, even taking the bio-based carbon dioxide and making that into utilities. So this is nothing new to increase the modification of the material, the biomass feedstock. However, I would like to emphasize that the biorefinery industry is not necessarily the forest industry. And also, since you are many people from the chemical industry, I do not necessarily think that the biorefinery industry is the chemical industry either. As Karin said in a bit, I think that the biorefinery industry is something new and it's cross-cutting because you can see that it spans different industry sectors and different sectors. This is just an example of a paper that we wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the example of the biofuel sector in Sweden. And it just shows that there are many actors involved, and this is a bit old because now E.ON hasn't got any biogas production, it's sold to ST1. But still, the example goes anyway, saying that the actors that are active in this field of development of biofuels come from different parts of existing incumbent industries. And also we have some new actors entering in the technology developers and small and medium-sized enterprises. So this is just an example showing that this new bioeconomy, the industry structure of the bioeconomy will probably be a bit different than the present one. And that poses, I know that we have some people from the politics with us, that poses some challenges for how to stimulate the development that we would like to have. I would also just like to highlight quickly some trends in the bioeconomy that we see at RISE. This is a selection, but just to show the tremendous possibilities that we have with the bioeconomy. And one rather strong trend that we see is in sustainable packaging. And here we can do a lot more on the bioeconomy actually. One thing that is presently rather hot is to look into how could we make more circular, bio-based and circular systems, but also for food packaging. And then of course, if you start to circulate material, then you get into how do you do that in a safe way if you're going also to eat the products that have been in the packaging. So that is an area where we are still doing development, but there is a quite large potential, both in the packaging as such, but also in food packaging. It was mentioned biofuels earlier on, and maybe then not biofuels for cars in the long run. But as said, since biomass is limited, and we also have a rather high need for energy for transport, this, of course, in the long term needs to be reduced, but the demand for liquid biofuels in the aviation and also marine sector will be rather high for quite a long time. And I would say definitely high enough for the bio-based feedstock. And we can also see that we need to go beyond the feedstock used today in waste oils and fats, because it's just not enough. We need to go into larger feedstock segments, such as the lignocellulosic residues, both from agriculture, but also from the forest industry. You were talking about the chemical industry, so I will not say so much here, but we can say that the chemical industry is one of the largest users of fossil feedstock. And of course, it's quite a grand challenge of replacing that fossil feedstock with bio-based feedstock. The really nice upside is that since biomass is so diverse, as I said, it's a challenge in one way, but it also provides an opportunity because sometimes certain bio-based feedstocks can fit really, really well into certain product tracks or even be part of new types of products. But there still is quite a challenge, as said by Daniel, to transform the chemical industry from the present fossil conditions at large to bio-based. And it's also a challenge for some of the smaller, medium-sized enterprises to get into the market, since it's usually quite significant investments that needs to be done, and you need to access the capital for that. We also see a big trend, it wasn't highlighted by any of the previous talks, but on sustainable alternatives to proteins that could also be based on residue streams in different ways. But I think that these slides will be available afterwards, then you can look into all the details. But I wanted to highlight from my perspective some of the challenges that we see in order to get the bioeconomy to expand, and also for the biorefineries to become a reality and a new industrial sector, both in Sweden but also globally. And I highlighted 3 challenges, and these are directed towards policy because as said, you have some politicians with you in the room. Of course, there are more challenges. We can say that for every technology track, we need to take that up into scale. We need to demonstrate that you need research funding and so on. But if we look at the more policy-directed challenges, I have highlighted 3. And the first one is that we need some measures in order to decrease the risk that is associated with a first-of-a-kind plant. There are usually, as said, quite large capital investments that are needed, because both, like if you look into the chemical industry, the pulp and paper industry, the refinery industry, those processes are quite expensive. And even if you're doing them maybe a bit smaller for a first-of-a-kind bio-based plant, it's still significant capital investments. And the first time you do something new, the risk of failure is high. So you need some kind of way of de-risking that. And that could be for the state to take offtake agreements, or it could be other things, some kind of support for investment. We also say that one of the challenges is that we do not necessarily always put the policy support for what we want. In Sweden, we have discussed the reduction quota system, which is a really, really good way of getting transport fuels that have a low carbon footprint to the market. And it's really efficient for that. But then we say that we do not think that it actually hits the target. And then we are a bit tough on that policy instrument, because the target it's designed to give cost-efficient reduction in the transport system. But if we also want these other good things that Karin was talking about, if we want rural development, if we want increased economy of scale and industrial development in Sweden as such, or strengthening our own security of supply, or if we want to use certain feedstocks, then of course we need to put policy support for that. We cannot expect a policy tool for cost-efficient reduction to do all that, because that will give us a cost, I would say, probably as it has done, import, because that was the most cost-efficient solution. And the third one, which I think is actually not the last one, but maybe the most important one, is that we need improved policy coordination. As I showed on the earlier slide, and that is not only true for the transport or biofuel sector in Sweden, it's true for the bioeconomy and the biorefinery in general. It's many different industries that are involved and many different sectors. And policy goes from both the environmental side, the industry side, the energy side, and usually that is not coordinated. And support and schemes and the industrial setting is diverging, and different actors have different preconditions, and that needs to be more aligned if we want this to be developed in a fast way, so to say, to be more coordinated from the policy side. And just to emphasize that, I added some 2 links to publications that support those arguments that we have been publishing just recently. So that was the last one. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Johanna. Let's see if we have any questions in the room or on the email list. Any questions in the room? Yes, we do have a question.
Yes, it is Malte again. Johanna, I have one question. How do you see carbon capture utilization as a source for carbon?
I think that is a good. If you capture CO2, hopefully it's bio-based. Of course, all CO2 molecules, when they are in the atmosphere, they are equal. But if we look in the more long term, I think that the carbon capture and utilization is a vital part of the resource efficient bio-based economy. If we're going to say that the bio-based carbon is a scarce resource, then we need to make sure that we utilize all the bio-based carbons, also the ones that we kind of leak from the processes. And a benefit of many of these new biorefinery processes, it is that they have actually rather pure side streams of CO2 that can be captured quite easily and in a cost-efficient way. So I think that capturing and upgrading and utilization of bio-based carbon is an important part of the resource-efficient biorefineries of the future.
Thank you. And thank you, Johanna, and thanks for the very clear message to the politicians that we have now in the room. Thanks for joining us, and thanks again for being here and telling us of your analysis. And your presentation will be, I'm now looking at the project manager, the presentation will be, yes, okay, so you can all get the pictures later on then. Thank you so much. Thanks and bye-bye. And now we've heard from research analysts, and we've heard from a little bit from the governmental work and the industry. And now we are ready to welcoming our panel and our politicians as well. Welcome up, everyone. Please join me. And we were supposed to have Helena Strockenfeld from the Moderate Party also with us, but she cancelled, unfortunately, last night. So we don't have anyone from the new government in Sweden, but we will cope anyway. And welcome Rickard Nordin from the Centre Party.
Thanks.
And Jytte Guteland from the Social Democrats. And also Karin will join us again, and Daniel. Please join us for the panel. You can be on that side, Daniel. It's easier. Yes, thank you. Okay, so we got some interesting input now from Johanna, but let me just first ask the questions that we did ask for this seminar. What's holding us back, and what should be the next step forward? Big questions, but anyway, I'll start with you, I think, Rickard, and then Jytte.
Well, in some ways we already heard the answers, I would say. What's holding us back, Johanna said it. We are got her 3 points is quite good, I think. And the answer, well, that's what Karin is going to give us in a few months or maybe a year. But of course, there is things that politics has to do, because the answers that Karin is giving is up to the politics to implement, of course. I'm a bit worried that we are seeing a government at the moment that will put heavy on the bio-CCS to solve the climate issue, because that if we put it in CCS, we can't put it on CCU. And I know that we can't use the forest to everything, and there's a lot of things that we need to be done, and every source of carbon is going to be a good source, especially if it's bio-based. So I think we have to start viewing this in Sweden not as a problem, because right now it's a problem with the climate, it's a problem, it costs a lot, and it's, yeah, you feel it when you go to the pump and try to fill up your tank. But this is an opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to do right now in politics, starting to see it as an opportunity, both for the economy, of course, for jobs and all that, for the climate, but also security of supply. In my sense of view, Sweden has the potential to be a green giant, and not like the Hulk in the rage way, but in the good way, with strategic resources. Yeah, for example. Clothes is, I mean, textile is a perfect way to use bio-based materials as well. So I think there's a great potential, but we have to capture that and sell that story better than we're doing at the moment.
What do you say, Jytte? You worked a lot in the EU as well, I know, but what do you say? What's holding us back, and what should be the next step?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me and us here in this interesting morning. And I also would like to thank the Chamber for having us and talking about this. And I think this exchange between Sweden and Germany is extremely important in the time we live in. That said, I also see the challenges and I see the opportunities. As been said, of course, it's about the bioeconomy is an opportunity to solve many things and be part of the solution when it comes to the global heating. In both of course, capturing, but also by using the forest for different parts of the economy, both substituting things that has been with plastics and also like the morning talks here, we have a great opportunity, of course, of using the biomass and then, of course, biofuels. So I see many important parts of the economy where we can use the forest. All that said, we also need to know that we need to use it the cleverest way, and that's been also said, so it's nothing new, but we need to make sure that we have enough and that we don't promise anything that can't be held. And then when we come to the challenges, I would like to also say that on the EU level, there is not so much positive view in using the forest that way at this moment. I don't want to be one of these extremely negative persons who claim that the EU is not understanding Sweden. I don't want to add to that discourse in the political debate, because it's lots of people who would like to fill that leadership or take that leadership. But I do think that the Commission and Ursula von der Leyen herself from Germany needs to also see the opportunities in the bioeconomy and not only see forest as it should be something that could be used as capturing. We need to also see that if we substitute and use the forest, we can also help out. So I think that it's actually also back to Germany, and I think in this house it's a good place to say that. I don't think Sweden is the problem here. I think the leadership is very much both in the council from the German government and then also on and of course the chancellor, and the view that is how you see the forest. And I think we should not underestimate the German voice in the EU system. So that's both as being a very strong leader in the council. And then also in the Commission, we also have the German leadership. And I think that so much of the political solution is actually also in the German hands.
Well, Daniel, it's in the German hands. No pressure, but what can you bring from Germany? And also, do you think that Sweden will be the green giant, or what's your view on this?
The potential is very clear in Sweden, right? Yeah. I mean, we have seen it in the presentations, and it's very clear. The nucleocellulosic base is absolutely great and offers a great potential. Just one comment on that bound. I think the first thing we need to do is not to talk in these absolute terms, right? And this is bad and this is good. What you learn moving deeper into this topic is you have to take a deep look into the individual routes, right? You have to go really from, for example, on the agro side, yeah, how is it harvested? Where do you go? Which route? Where are the logistics? What kind of emissions do I have? What kind of land am I using? And so on. If we have, and that whole, through the whole chain, if you have a clear set and also something you can rely on an understanding of what is a sustainable criteria to source from, and if that is now agro or if that is forest in whichever way, yeah. If you have that common understanding, this is the true basis then to move ahead and make the resources accessible. Yeah, and also one difficult topic I always see right from the beginning is there enough? This is scarce, right? I mean, we currently see millions of tons already in the fuels industry being accessed. 110 million tons of ethanol being out there in the fuels pool globally, for example. HVO, a couple of million tons out there, and so on. So yes, this is a scarce resource overall. Yeah, but there is a way to step into that, to also see now and use chances of upcoming electrification of cars to redirect that into material use and so on. So the ask is more to see and move ahead with a differentiated view on that, yeah, and then open the space to access these raw materials then also for material use. I think that is probably then also an answer to make that discussion work in the coming years.
What do you do you want to comment? Sure.
I think that is a good answer, and of course part of it, the electrification, will help out, and we will, as been said earlier here in the presentation, we have to use the biofuels also for the old cars, and there is a two-way solution here to reduce the CO2 emissions. But that said, I also think it is important to recognize that if we have EU Commission who constantly would like to substitute reduction into to have a bigger coal sink and use the forest to capture that. If that's the way in the future, then we will also have problem to use the forest for a very active bioeconomy. So I think we need, and Sweden need to recognize that there are important changes that we need to do and develop and constantly be better when it comes to for example, making sure that we have a good ecosystem and we are taking care of the forest, the methods needs to improve. But that said, if EU constantly would like Sweden to have a higher part in the capturing of the CO2 and using the forest to do it, Sweden is taking a 6th part of it, and we have 27 member states. Then of course it's very difficult to also say that we should increase the use of the forest for different sectors. So I mean, we need to do both here, and Sweden need to recognize that there is important measures from EU, and EU has absolutely a right to be interested in having a better bioeconomy, be interested in the biodiversity. It's extremely important. But Sweden cannot be the answer to the unwillingness of reducing CO2 emissions and reduce it in different sectors. It cannot constantly be the answer, because I've been in the system for 8 years and I've seen that every time this is the solution in the end when the member states don't want to reduce their emissions, and when different sectors don't want to reduce emissions, then we say, okay, let's do a bigger part by the forest. And I don't think that's fair. So I think that's why I want to address also that part here, because that will be a problem if we would like to use the bioeconomy in a higher amount and use it in different sectors.
But Karen, I think Johanna, she was a lot about policies in the end there, and I guess that your work will be the foundation to some of those policies, I guess.
The ultimate answer.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to your work, but what's your comment on this discussion?
Well, I agree. It's important to see the opportunities, and I think one important thing that should be in place, I guess, that is a clear view, or the clear view from politics, that this is the way we want to go. I mean, we want to have a bioeconomy. We can't replace everything, but we could replace so much more than we do today. But of course, there are obstacles on our way as well. But a clear willingness that politics wants to go this is the direction, and well, putting this inquiry in place is a part of that, I guess. But we'll see what we can come up with.
One step in the right direction. Yes, Rickard, I was just thinking, you're now in the opposition. What do you say about what we know now, the new government and their ambitions? They actually gave or increased the amount of money to the so-called Industriklivet, sort of money to the industrial move towards net zero. What would you say about their ambition as we've seen so far?
Well, they're of course not here to defend themselves, so I'm not going to be that mean. I think it's good that they put money in Industriklivet and that Klimatklivet, the other big chunk of money, is still there. On the other hand, I mean, reducing the reduction quota in gas and so on is not very impressive at all, and there are a few other things that I'm a bit worried about. I think we have to change the perspective. Daniel, you're saying that bio-based materials is a scarce resource. Sure, that's true, but so is the atmosphere. That's also a scarce resource. So it can't be an answer saying that, well, this is a problem here, so we can't do it because, well, bio-based CO2 in Sweden is not a scarce resource. There's a lot of things going out from emissions from paper mills and district heating and so on. So we got plenty of it. We just have to capture it and use it. I think we have to make sure that we don't put these problems into perspective. The potential is so great and so important. Then that's we have to pinpoint. And I usually say that I haven't told Mark actually, but one of my goals is that the next big production site that BASF is gonna have is gonna be in my home constituency on the West Coast. That's one of my goals. I haven't told him yet, but now he knows. So and I think that's quite clear that we have the potential here if we put it right. Not one of the biggest chemical company not being that big on the West Coast where we are big in chemicals is kind of a waste, I think.
A nice invitation there, Mark. Daniel, Johanna, she said, talked about policies and regulations in the end there. Do you agree with her or do you have what's your wish list for the regulation part of this industry?
Repeating it a little bit, but basically what you saw throughout the presentation is actually we're going all in the same direction with our recommendation. De-risking is important, a clear framework, several initiatives moving in parallel but not really aligned also in the EU space right now. So how do they all come together, giving us a certain security to now go and invest, because we are talking about also for the chemical industry, for a whole new space we are opening up there. Yeah, and we are moving out of the known fossil bases and into this new space. So combine these different things, so de-risk as much as you can and bring us a stable and robust framework, and that we described, I think, throughout the different presentations in the same way, right? And this is
Karen also said the stable and clear message. Yeah, Jutta, you wanted to.
Yeah, I think from Johanna's presentation, I think one thing that I was thinking about was how she mentioned also the importance of having safe chemicals. And I think that's also important in this discussion when it comes to the opportunity of reusing. And then she was having the example with in the food emballage. But I really think this is very important also for the chemical industry, that this message is we need to improve it, because it can be a U-turn in this circular economy work if we do work to reuse material, and then when there is chemicals coming in together, they have a cocktail effect that's negative. And I think it's not the topic of today, but when I have you here, I think it's important also, and since Johanna was mentioning it, if we would like to use the circle in this way, and I think that's important, it's crucial, then I also believe many of the answers is in the industry on how we can do it and still be very safe. Otherwise, people will not want this development if we see that there are toxic chemicals going back into the system. So I think today, and I would really like to hear, because that must be something that Daniel is working on and having several discussions on how to tackle.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for packaging overall, I mean, anyhow, push the recycling first, for sure, and chem cycling is also a way to actually use the same way of chemicals than in that process. So this is more the waste usage topic and how we bring it back. On the renewables topic and what I'm focusing on and talking about the big scale up also in the chemical industry, I'm not so we have quite a few interesting routes where you can take bio-based material and have a certain dedicated product with a certain specific application or potentially different one. What I'm really focusing is on, if you really want to make the transition, you have to start in the beginning at C1, at the olefins and so on, in this production, in this space. And at this point, it's about how can we bring that into scale. Yeah, and when you start also at that base, it doesn't have the products you're using at the end. And when you bring it in the beginning into your crackers, a different product stream, you're not necessarily changing the attributes, or you're not at all changing the performance of the end products really as such. So this is, in this context, not such a big topic. The question is rather how to make it accessible, how to make that market open, to bring higher volumes into the early entry points of the whole entire chemical value chain.
I don't reckon you want to.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the mass balance comes in as well, because of course it has to be real mass balance and clear links. It can't be like, yeah, you can't put in something in Singapore and sell it in Sweden. That's a problem. Or like the Norwegian in their hydropower, you can buy Norwegian hydropower in the Netherlands, which is, well, that's not the hydropower. But if you do it properly, of course, it's a really important way to actually enhance a market. And I think we can do much as politicians as well. Take the tax on plastic bags. Why isn't differentiated with bio-based or recycled plastic, for example? Now the government is saying that they're going to abolish the tax on burning waste. Well, that would have been astonishing to actually differentiate that as well, according to if you have sorted out materials, for example, instead of just burning everything. We can have more quotas. I like quota systems. Plastic floors, for example, or pipes is quite low-hanging fruits to use in that way, but where there is good materials that could be used much more than we are. So there's a lot of things that could be done which could help quite substantially.
We're going to wrap up soon, and I'm going to ask you to say one thing that you wish for in 2023. But when you think about that, do we have any questions in the room?
Quite soon.
Or on the email? No? No questions in the room? Okay, then you got like 20 seconds to think about that. One thing that you wish for 2023 regarding this, of course. What do you say, Daniel, if you start?
2023.
It's soon, sort of. Yeah.
Right now, this dialogue to continue. Okay, sit down, have an open dialogue, how we manage that, and get all the different initiatives which are right now in the making, and bioeconomy strategies and so on, jointly into a meaningful framework that we can rely on, because we are now in 2023 taking important investment decision, closing contracts. We need to set the foundation right now to change, and value changes in the chemical industry takes a few years, and we need that kind of discussion right now. So 2023, this year to be continued. Yeah, this is my wish then for the near future.
Good. What do you say, Rickard?
Well, Churchill once said, never waste a good crisis. And the horrible things happening in Ukraine at the moment is also a great opportunity to actually reduce the dependence on oil and other fossil resources from countries that we don't want to send our money to. So if you can do that, well, then everything else is going to be part of this. And that's security of supply, not only climate. And then you reach totally different people. I think that's important.
Good, thank you. Jutta?
also I wish for many things next
Yeah.
year.
You just have to pick one.
Yeah, the war to end,
yeah.
Repower EU to be really strong, the whole climate package to deliver, the ETS system to be really strong, and then I have a good bioeconomy strategy that will both fulfill need from industry to be part of this transition, and also capture, of course, the CO2 emissions and be part of that very important circle.
Excellent. And Karin, you get this.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I would like to have all your good ideas, all your description on your business cases. Because we will not come up with answers if we don't know the questions.
Very good. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you. A round of applause. Thank you. And well, we're getting to the end of this seminar. Mark, will you join me to sort of close this seminar? What would you say is your, I've seen that you've been scribbling a lot. What's your takeaways from today? Yeah, where do you want me to start? Well, oh, sorry, the sound.
We've heard about needs, right, of the industry, consumers. I'll touch on that in a second. We've heard around the Swedish context from the inquiry. What I was very happy to hear is actually that we're, going beyond the climate aspect. So the true definition of sustainability, balancing economic requirements, socioeconomic developments with the climate part to it. I think that is is very important, a very important part. We heard from Johanna around the drivers that we see, where the bioeconomy can flourish. We heard about challenges, technological challenges, the markets that are developing. And then, of course, we also learned that there is a little bit on the German plate in order to ensure that the forest is being used and seen differently. Jutta, I did take note of that, and I'm not promising you anything, of course, but at least where we can locally, but also maybe in Germany, we will address that topic. And to be frank, that is something that I haven't yet, even though been in the area for quite some time, I haven't embraced as much as you described it today, and for that I thank you very much. You also addressed another policy area, which is safety around materials and our industry, and that is a completely other chapter that I could expand on for hours and hours and hours. And I would like to extend an invitation to you to have a discussion around that. We're very active in the area of chemical strategy for sustainability under the umbrella of the Green Deal, so we would be very much happy to engage on that. Maybe, do I still have a minute?
Yes.
Thank you. Maybe if I just now go into my little note slits here, if I try to capture the question, what is hindering? I think that's sort of here, right? At the end, we tend in these panels to we all agree. Well, but let's put out what my thoughts are around what is hindering. I think what you could take from Daniel's messages is that there is willingness by industry, us as a chemical industry, to really transform. We're not necessarily only doing that for the greater purpose. We also see this from customers. So we have seen a tremendous change over the past, I would say, 4 or 5 years. Customers, us as consumers, ultimately wanting different products. And one way how we want to respond to this is by PCFs, transforming our value chain, et cetera, and we're following that trend. There is, frankly speaking, there is not a question around demand. Demand is substantially oversubscribed in products and solutions that we've talked about today. Now, there is, of course, still the question around scale. And scale immediately, so with being oversubscribed, there's a question of scale. And with this question of scale and volumes, there immediately comes the economic equation. Because there is a premium that comes with products right now. In our, doesn't matter where they travel through our production system or in other places. And for that, we need to scale this, because scale is the one thing that will enable us to bring ultimately costs down for our customers. And here I think if we touch on two things, what the hindrance or what could be done are the so-called framework conditions that also Daniel alluded to. The material use is the carbon accounting essentially. How do we do this? We addressed mass balance as a concept. Mass balance, we're convinced, is the way that we can fastest get into scale. To create business cases enabling us to deliver at scale solutions readily available today into the market. And I think this is something that should be considered more. Of course, there is permitting issues around new assets. We talked about new value chains being created. This is not uniquely to the bioeconomy. Permitting in general, be it around green energy, so wind farms, etc., permitting. If we want to really master the challenges ahead, we need to have a refreshed view on permitting and how we can actually deliver some of those aspects. And then we heard de-risking. It actually all delivers and pays into de-risking. So right policy framework de-risks, but of course also there, the support for industry should be something to be considered in order to bring scale to it. I focus on scale because I actually I'm not a chemist. I have a business background with all my humble heart. I actually don't think that technology is the problem. I'm actually quite confident that technology, so chemistry, technology, asset-driven, and the availability, I don't think is part of the problem. Of course, in order to scale from something like 10,000 tons to 1 million tons, you need some experience and you need to work on that. So it won't go in a day, but I'm genuinely convinced that technology is there to enable this. So it is more market demands, it is the scaling and the other parts. And that's how I would like to conclude, if I may.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. It's good to see how passionate you are about this and all your...
I get excited very quickly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you to all participants being up here on stage today and all of you joining us here and digitally as well. So thanks for today. Yeah, thank you.